benediction.
The English language abounds with the words that are designed to make a person feel special. I proclaim that to us today that 3 of the most used words in the English language are I love you. 2 of the most cherished words are come again, but the most beautiful word of all is welcome. We love you for joining us for the divine service here at Sunrise Seventh-day Adventist Church. We ask that you come again and with all the encouragement that an 11-year-old can give, I say welcome to our place of worship on this our Children's Day. Once more, we welcome everyone and ask that you turn and greet your neighbor with a handshake and a smile. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Amen.
Our call to worship comes to us from Psalm 95. O come, let us sing unto the Lord. Let us make a joyful noise to the rock of our salvation. Let us come before his presence with thanksgiving and make a joyful noise unto him with psalms. O come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker. For he is our God, and we are the people of his pasture, and the sheep of his hand. The church is now called to worship.
Make me an instrument of your peace and of your love. Use me on this holy Sabbath day. In Jesus' precious name, amen.
Amen.
Let us now repeat our affirmation of faith, which can be found in your bulletin, on the screen, and in Revelation 14, verse 6 to 12. Revelation 14, verse 6 to 12. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth, and the sea and the fountains of waters. And there followed another angel, saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And another angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, Fear no man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand. The same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone, in the presence of the holy angels, and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascended up forever and ever. And they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and receiveth his mark in his name. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. The hymn of praise is number 195.
Number 198.
And can it be that I should gain on his rest in the Savior's blood? Die for me who causes pain, for me who him to death pursued. Amazing love, how can it be that thou, my God, shouldst die for me? Amazing love, how can it be that thou, my God, shouldst die for me? He left his Father's throne above, so free to find the night his grace, empty himself of all love, and did for Adam's helpless race. This mercy all immense and free, for oh my God is found at me. Amazing love, how can it be that thou, my God, shouldst die for me? Look in prison, spirit lay, fast bound in sin and nature's night. Thy mighty cruel evening ray, I walk the dungeon rent with light. My chain fell off, my heart was free. I rose like born and followed thee. Amazing love, how can it be that thou, my God, shouldst die for me? No condemnation now I tread, Jesus and all in him is mine. I live in him, I live in heaven, I'm clothed in righteousness divine. Bold I approach the eternal throne, and claim the crown through Christ my own. Amazing love, how can it be that thou, my God, shouldst die for me? Amen.
The scripture reading will be taken from 1 John 4, verse 7 through 12. 1 John 4, verse 7 through 12. I will read in your hearing. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone that loveth is born of God and knoweth God. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. In this was manifested the love of God towards us, because that God sent his only begotten Son into the world, that we might live through him. Herein is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us, and sent his Son to be propitiation for our sins. Beloved, if God so loved us, we ought also to love one another. No man hath seen God at any time. If we love one another, God dwelleth in us, and his love is perfected in us. Amen. Here ends the reading of God's holy word.
I know. And now we will have our prayer.
Come to the mercy seat.
And now we'll have our children's funds offering, where our little builders will be coming around with their baskets. The funds collected will go towards our church building.
All they belong to Jesus, building up his cause. Sunrise, 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 see those dollars fall. They are all for Jesus. Will you join the cause? See those little builders, let none pass by you. They are happy builders in the Master's plan. Sunrise, 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 see those dollars fall. They are all for Jesus. Will you join the cause? See those dollars dropping, watch them as they fall. They belong to Jesus, building up his cause. Sunrise, 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 see those dollars fall. They are all for Jesus. Will you join the cause? See those little builders, let none pass by you. They are happy builders in the Master's plan. Sunrise, 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 see those dollars fall. They are all for Jesus. Will you join the cause? See those dollars dropping, watch them as they fall. They belong to Jesus, building up his cause. Sunrise, 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 see those dollars fall. They are all for Jesus. Will you join the cause? See those little builders, let none pass by you. They are happy builders in the Master's plan. Sunrise, 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 see those dollars fall. They are all for Jesus. Will you join the
Good morning, boys and girls. You can do better than that. Good morning, boys and girls. Good morning. Beautiful. Good morning, church. The topic of our story this morning is entitled, Ice Cream is Good for the Soul. Who likes ice cream? I love ice cream. So let me tell you why ice cream is good for the soul. Last week, a young mother took her young children to a restaurant for dinner. This is not something that she got to do very often, and it was the first in a very long time that she was able to take her children out. As they sat down, her 6-year-old son asked if he could say the prayer for the food. As they bowed their heads, he said, remember, he's 6, God is good. God is great. Thank you, God, for the food. And I would thank you so much more if Mom gets us ice cream for dessert. And liberty and justice for all. Amen. Along with the laughter from the other customers sitting nearby, an older woman remarked, that's what's wrong with this country. Kids today don't even know how to pray. How dare he ask God for ice cream? Why? I never heard of such a thing. Hearing this, the little boy burst into tears and asked his mother if he did something wrong. Mom, did I pray wrong? Is God mad at me? He asked. As she held him and assured him that he had done a terrific job praying to God, and God was certainly not mad, an elderly gentleman, who is the one who told the story, went over to the table. He smiled at the young boy and said, I happen to know that God thought your prayer was great. Really? The little 6-year-old boy said. Yes. See, I'm a pastor in the church, and I know that God loves to hear when little children pray. And guess what? He has a great sense of humor. Then he said in a whisper, pointing to the woman who had made the mean remark, too bad she's never asked God for ice cream. A little ice cream is good for the soul sometimes. Naturally, the mother bought her children ice cream at the end of the meal. Her son stared at his for a moment, and he did something that she said she will remember for the rest of her life. He closed his eyes as if he said a quick prayer, picked up his ice cream, and without saying a word, walked over and placed it in front of the woman who had made the mean remark. With a big smile, he said, Here, this is for you. As you can see, God answered my prayer. Ice cream is good for the soul sometimes, and I think my soul is good with God already. Boys and girls, I want to encourage you to continue to pray, because no matter how big or small it is, God does hear and answer your prayers. Amen. And sometimes you may come across situations where people may say mean things. Do not let it get to you. In 1 Peter 3, verse 9, it says, do not repay evil with evil or insult with insult, but with blessing, because to this you are called, so that you may inherit a blessing. Today I'm going to ask Elder Bailey to pray for the boys and girls here at Sunrise. We are blessed with some wonderful boys and girls, and I want you guys to remember how special you are. So as the elder of the Children's Division, I'm going to ask him to pray for you this morning. All eyes closed.
Okay, boys and girls, let us bow our heads, close our eyes as we pray. Father in heaven, we indeed are so grateful to you for your love and your mercy towards us. You have blessed this church with so many young children, and we give you thanks. We pray now, Lord, that you will pronounce a blessing upon them, and that you will bring them up in the nurture and admonition of your amazing grace. We pray, Lord, that you will bless the homes from which they come, and help us as loved ones, as parents, as guardians, that we will endeavor to teach them your ways so that when they get older, they won't depart from it. We pray now that you will bless them at school, at play, wherever they are, that you will put a hedge around them, that you will protect them from the evil one, and help them, Lord, to keep close to you. Help us to continue to teach them your ways. And we pray now that you will continue to bless them and provide for them. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Everyone please stand. And then the boys will follow.
There's a day that our God said, remember, a day he created and blessed. On this day he still calls us together. This day is for worship and rest. So let's spend this time with Jesus on his his seventh day of rest. All of heaven waits to meet us. Jesus calls to us, come and be blessed.
When we rest from our work on the Sabbath, our needs God provides in His way. He says, come, let's grow closer each Sabbath. If we love Him, we'll honor His day.
So let's spend this time with Jesus on his seventh day of rest. All of heaven waits to meet us. Jesus calls to us, come and be blessed.
Rich in every way, so that you can be generous on every
At the cross, God did not change the Sabbath. This truth in the Bible is plain, and the Sabbath seals all God's 10 precepts. His law and His love never change.
On this day, our true God claims our worship. This day is His signature seal.
When we meet, He's ours of sweet friendship. What joy and what pleasure we feel. So let's spend this time with Jesus on His seventh day of rest. All of heaven waits to meet us. Jesus calls to us, Lord our God, we pull you out of this mercy. There shall not be to meet us. Jesus calls to us, come and be blessed.
that the offering collected today will go towards its intended purpose. Amen.
There's a day that our God said, remember.
Followed by the presentations of their gifts and the Song of Meditation by AKA.
Today, I have the privilege of introducing my baby, my heartbeat, my heartache, and the love of my life, Lauren Madison Rose Sadler. A beautiful, strong, intelligent, God-fearing, and loving 10-year-old girl.
From the moment I found out I was going to be a mother to this precious gift from God, the most important thing for me was that her character was what it should be. So I prayed continuously, asking God to guide her dad and I in raising a child who has a heart for others and a deep love for him, and to shield her from the evil influences of this world. God, in his mercy, has answered my prayer and blessed our sweet child with even more than I prayed for. Not only does Lauren exemplify love and empathy, but she is a model student, achieving academic excellence at each grade level. She is also very kind and patient, especially with a little sister who gives her plenty of opportunities to exercise her patience. Al and I are so thankful to God for his continued presence and guidance in her life. Nothing makes us more proud than when she gave her life to God in baptism on June 10th, 2017. When you pray for Lauren, I ask that you pray specifically that her life will take whatever path will lead her to the kingdom.
I am here today to introduce one of the speakers for the day, none other than my brother Damian Leo Crawford Jr. He is 10 years old and born October 25, 2008 to the parents Tamara Allen and Damian Crawford Sr. He migrated to the United States 2016 and has attended different schools in Broward County in Jamaica. He attended Catherine Hall Primary School. Now he is enrolled in New Hope SDA School, where he is a part of the art club and the school choir, and his favorite Bible verse is John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him will not perish but have everlasting life.
I am here to introduce Christine Lewis, my granddaughter. I don't even know what to say. It has been a long time. Christine Lewis was born March 20th, 2008. And she started coming to this church when she was 6 months old. We have a lot of hurdles to climb. And I asked her this morning, what should I say about you? And she said to me, we don't have PhD or whatever to say, but I say that's okay. I know since she started in this church, she has PhD, she has a lot of degree because she was so wonderful. She had 3 mothers in this church. Sister Tina Fiddler, Sister B was one of the mother. We have a lot of chauffeurs, and we have to give God thanks for that. We have Elder and Sister Powell were one of our chauffeurs. We have Brother Helen Baugh. We have Sister Joy Powell, and we have Sister Millicent Hill. So we are very privileged to have a wonderful Sunrise family to help me to raise Christine. We thank all the prayer warriors who have prayed, because sometimes we are here, you don't know. But we want to thank you for praying for Christine so that she could be here today to present the word of God to you. Today, I give you Christine, your daughter, your granddaughter.
I ask you to bear with me because age is telling on me. To those who are visiting Sunrise Seventh-day Adventist Church today, I want to share something with you. Our Sabbath School Quarterly this morning takes us back to history. And I want you to follow with me for a few moments as we look at our journey, especially our visiting friends. More than 20 years ago, a group of worshipers at Lauderhill decided to leave that church that has grown so fast, and more than 700 members at that time, and we felt that it was time that we should leave and come to Sunrise to start a group. That Sabbath when we left, we went to a school called Mirror Lake. That's where we started. At that time, I was the children's ministry director for Lauderhill Church. And that Sabbath when we left and we came over, there was Sister Janice Clark. You don't know her. Was a family with one child. One child we had. And I think it must have been a few young people, including Heather, who is sitting in the front, was our youth. And Sister Stacy was our youth. Then Judine and Shanique and the others came on later. But those were 2 young people. And from Mirror Lake, then we went to Mount Hermon. And I remember the children, we got more children. And we had it was glass on the side. Then from Mount Hermon, we went to Christ the King. What do we call that? The Round Church. We have a name for everything, the Round Church. From the Round Church, we went to the Presbyterian Church. And that one I'll never forget. That's while we were there, that Sabbath, I got the news that my mother passed away. So that church, every time I pass, it comes back. And from the Presbyterian Church, where did we go? We came here. This morning, I was asked to do a presentation to the speakers. And I look back where God has brought us to where we are now. History is important, because if we forget the past, then we are not going to do very well, because God has done great things for us. I hear Sister Sadler introducing Lorraine. I remember when Sister Sadler was pregnant with Lorraine, and now she's going to be speaking to us today. I remember Christine. You were told that the next speaker came on a little later. God has blessed this church tremendously, and I thank God for the Sunrise Church family. I will not take back my word. This is a family. Amen. We take care of others. And those who are coming in, I pray that you will join us so that we can move as one family, one march to the kingdom of God. This morning, it gives me great pleasure. You know, stand up, Miss Sadler. I have to be very careful with this young lady. I teach her in Bible class, and she always corrects me if I don't say her first name well. So to make sure that I don't fall prey to the correction, I call her Miss Sadler, because I can call that very well. So this morning, beautiful. And you know, when she was to be baptized, I work with her. And here she's speaking today. So Miss Sadler, so that you don't correct me up here, it gives me great pleasure to present this gift to you. Brother Bailey, Elder Bailey wants to see you. Your mother has said it beautifully. May you continue to grow and serve God wherever He leads you. It gives me great pleasure. Now, her grandmother has already spoken. Christine came to us when she was a baby, and we have watched her grow. And now Christine is in, you know which school she is in now? Middle school. The baby has now grown. Now she's in middle school. We want to continue to pray for her, and that God will continue to lead her and let her shine. Christine, on behalf of the Children's Division, the Children's Ministry Division of this Sunrise Church, it gives me great pleasure to present this small token. The bag is small, but it's great what is in the bag. God bless you. Love you. Damien, Now, he came to us a little later, as you were told by his brother. But don't underestimate the power of this young man. In Bible, he has a mind that is sharper than mine, because he is a brilliant young man. May you pray for him that God will guide him. So Damien, on behalf of the Children's Ministry Division, it gives me great pleasure to hand this token to you. May God bless you, and may you continue to be used by the Holy Spirit. What a beautiful smile. Amen. Now, those of you who came in later, you might not know that several years ago, the Sunrise Choir was invited by other churches to sing for them. Let me see those who remembered. Yes, Sister Jackson, where did we journey to? Plantation. We went to Iliatha to sing and recite. We used to have a good choral speaking group. Then we went where? Loxahatchee. We were invited there. Our choir was good at that time. And there, you know whose leadership they were under? Sister Harpoon. So here is history again. Sister Harpoon is still leading the choir. But this morning, I want to commend the group for keeping those sashes beautiful. Sister Chambers, they are more than 20 years old. They are old. They were the first sashes we bought for the children. And look how beautiful, Sister Hopwood, I commend you. They were well pressed and looking great this morning. And they are old. But that's what when you buy good things, Sister Chambers, they last. So we thank you for caring for them. But this morning, I have a special presentation to do. And it is for a young man who has stayed with the choir. You know something, family members? This church is well organized. The children's ministry department goes up until the child leaves the early teen class. There are some of my wonderful members who think when their children reach a little height, they are no longer in the children's ministry department. They are until we send them from the early teen class to the youth class. So there is a young man here who, although he's the tallest in the choir, but he's doing what he's supposed to do. The choir used to have the early teens sing with us. I think they think they're too old now. But Joseph, where is Joseph? Come and stand beside me, Joseph. Amen. He's taller than I am. But I remember when Joseph was born. He's our baby who has grown into a young man. Give them a big smile, Joseph. But you know something about this young man? He's obedient. When I'm having Bible class and the other early teens who are gone, Joseph is coming to Bible class because he needs, and he is smart. When I say something, Joseph is backing me up with history. And he stays in the choir. Other members are saying he's too tall. You know why he's there? Because he's obedient. He's an early teen and he's following the plan. He stays with the children's division. I'm going to be sorry when we have to send him to the other group. But we want to thank him and we thank God that he was chosen to be the chairperson this morning. This is a young man who loves the Lord. And Joseph, I want you to continue to work for him. God bless you, my son. Keep going tall. He's taller than I am. There are some children, when you talk to them in the choir, they talk back to you. And because I'm an old teacher, I don't like when children talk back to me. And Joseph is not one of those. If Sister D. Hop would say, Joseph, sing a little louder, whatever he does, he's asked, Joseph is going to do it without questioning. And so this morning, Joseph, it says, devoted and outstanding leader, Sunrise Children's Choir. It gives me great pleasure, my young man, to give this to you. God bless you. And now, Sister Hopwood, I'm going to ask you to fix it back and have it nice for her. Thank you, Joseph. God bless you. And Even when I leave, I want to hear great things about you. All right? You may be seated, young man. This morning, I'm happy to see the principal of, I'm getting old, New Hope Seventh-day Adventist School. She's here. Many of her children are taking place. One of the speakers is at that school. He just joined them, and so she's here. Mrs. Simmons, we're very happy to have you today. And our children, you're a friend of Sunrise. And we hope that God will continue to bless you and bless your effort there at New Hope Seventh-day Adventist Church. God bless you all.
Your grace still amazes me. Your love is still a mystery. Each day I stand on my knees. Your grace still amazes me. Your grace still amazes me. Oh, patient Savior, you make me whole. You are the author and the healer of my soul. What can I give you? What can I say? Your grace still amazes me. Your love is still a mystery. Each day I fall on my knees. Your grace still amazes me. Your grace still amazes me.
my eyes can see. Your grace still amazes me. Your love is still a mystery. Each day I fall on my knees. Your grace still amazes me. Your grace still amazes me.
This Sabbath morning, it is my privilege to talk to you about God's grace. God is gracious to all of us, even me. It is by His grace that I woke up this morning, and by His grace that I am learning to be a better daughter, sister, friend, and Christian. Let us pray. Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen. God's loving gift of grace. Ephesians 2 verse 8. You were saved by faith in God, who treats us much better than we deserve. This is God's gift to you, and not anything you have done on your own. God's grace, the bridge that connects humanity with divinity. What is grace? Grace is a special favor or privilege from God to help us be better Christians and to be more like Him in all we think, say, or do. Grace makes us courteous, charming, kind, and attractive to others. When we have God's grace, we are pleasing to be around. Just like the little children who love to be with Jesus, so will others like to be around us when we have grace. Why do we need grace? It is the grace of God that sustains us in times of trouble. The grace of God sustained Paul in his imprisonment, enabling him to rejoice in tribulation. In his letter to the Philippians, he expressed the fact that his imprisonment had led to the furtherance of the gospel. Paul's experience reveals to us God's way of working. The Lord can make a way when all seems lost. Oftentimes we suffer misfortune and hasten to believe that God has neglected us or is punishing us for mistakes we have made in the past. However, in Acts of the Apostles, page 481, we see that reprimand is part of His great plan. We have a part to play. From the book entitled A Call to Stand Apart, we read that to make God's grace our own, we must act our part. From His grace is entitled to work in us to will and to do, but never as a substitute for our effort. God expects us to build characters in accordance with the pattern set before us. We are to lay brick by brick, adding grace to grace, finding our weak points and correcting them in accordance with the directions given. When a crack is seen in the walls of a mansion, we know that something about the building is wrong. In our character building, cracks are often seen. Unless these effects are remedied, the house will fall apart when the tempest of trials beats upon it. God gives us strength, reasoning power, time, in order that we may build characters on which He can place His stamp of approval. He desires each child of His to build a noble character by the doing of pure and noble deeds, that in the end He may present a symmetrical structure, a fair temple, honored by man and God. In our character building, we must build on Christ. He is the sure foundation, a foundation which can never be moved. The tempest of temptation and trial cannot move the building which is riveted to the eternal rock. He who would grow into a beautiful building for the Lord must cultivate every power of the being. It is only by the right use of the talents that the character can develop harmoniously. Thus we bring to the foundation that which is represented in the word as gold, silver, precious stones, material that will stand the test of God's purifying fires. In our character building, Christ is our example. Grace is what we receive instead of what we deserve. God's amazing grace. Entitled to nothing, yet a recipient of everything good as a result of God's grace. As children, our parents are sometimes great representatives of what God's grace may look like. My mom once shared a story with me about how she made a mistake as a young girl. She was supposed to go straight home after school, but instead she went to hang out with her friends. She thought her mom would never find out because she would eventually get home before her mom did. However, her cousin saw her out with her friends and reported this information to her dad. Her dad confronted her later that evening. He could not bring himself to spank her since he had never done it before, so he asked her mom to do it. She knew that her mom had no problem following through with the spanking. My mom experienced grace through her mom that day. Instead of a spanking, she sat her down and talked about the incident. Just like my mom did not get the punishment she probably deserved. There are several examples of biblical characters who did not receive the punishment they deserved or were recipients of God's grace through trials. God teaches us how to speak like Him, to speak with grace. Let your speech at all times be gracious, pleasant, and winsome, seasoned as it were with salt, so that you may never be at a loss to know you ought to answer anyone who puts question to you. Colossians 4, verse 6. Whatever we say to others and how we say it can have a lasting effect. We should always speak with kindness and love. Parents, remember, even when you reprimand your children, you should always do so in love and not anger. God has superpowers. My grace is all you need, for my power is greatest when you are weak. 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9. God's grace for Joseph gave him strength to persevere. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. Genesis 50, verse 20. As Joseph's story unfolds, it's difficult to see God's grace in all. Despised by his brothers, sold into slavery, wrongly accused, left to rot in prison. But that's not all how Joseph saw things. He reveals his perspective in Genesis 45, verse 7. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance. God used difficult and trying circumstances to position Joseph as the savior of his people. That's grace. Another story tells of the superpower of God's grace is the story of Wilhelm, who lives in the African country of Namibia. The power of God's grace changed him from a bully to a Christian. Here is his story. Making a difference. When I was a child, my family lived near the Seventh-day Adventist church in our town in northern Namibia. Mother took us to church, though we weren't Adventists. I liked church. On Sabbath afternoon, we go to Himba villages to sing and talk with them about God. Then, when I was 8 years old, we moved away, and I couldn't go to church anymore. As I grew up, I began bullying other kids at school. I knew it was wrong, but I enjoyed the power. My parents kept me busy selling things in the market so I would stay out of trouble. One Saturday, I slipped away from work to play soccer. I saw the Adventist children near the field and watched them the children walking to church. They were dressed nicely and seemed so happy. I wished I could be more like those children. I left the soccer field and walked to church. I recognized a few of the kids who went to my school. I expected these kids to treat me badly, but they didn't. They welcomed me into their group. When church started, they invited me to join them. I was embarrassed. My clothes were old and I didn't have shoes, but no one cared. During church, one of the leaders announced that the new Pathfinder Club needed more members. I didn't know what Pathfinder was, but it sounded like fun, so I asked to join. The leader invited me to the meeting that same afternoon. I told my mother that I had attended church and wanted to go back. She nodded. In time, I took my younger sisters with me. Then I invited my cousin. She started attending Pathfinders and eventually came to church. I gave my life to God. Mother sees how God is changing me, and she's glad. Others have noticed too. I no longer bully people. God has shown me how the kids I had bullied felt when I treated them badly. Now I try to be kind to others and encourage other kids. God has given me a great job. I help record and edit Bible stories for the Himba people, most of whom can't read. I'm happy that God is letting me make a difference in other people's lives. My mother is Himba, and I want to teach the Himba that Jesus loves them and wants them to live with him forever. God's grace proves his eternal love for us. Grace is when God gives us what we don't deserve. Mercy is when God doesn't give us what we do deserve. The Israelites repeatedly rebelled against God, yet he graciously rescued them. And he could bear Israel's misery no longer. Judges 10 verse 16. It is difficult to keep track of how often the Israelites grumbled against God, broke his commands, worshiped false idols, etc. Time and time again, they turned away from God, did whatever they wanted, lost God's protection, suffered great consequences, returned to God, and begged him to rescue them, over and over and over again. Sometimes there were lasting consequences for their poor decisions, but God showed more grace than was deserved, over and over and over again. Jesus paid it all. God's grace is free, but it's not cheap. It cost Jesus his life. Remember, the will of God will never take you to where the grace of God will not protect you. The story of Patricia reminds us that God's grace will always protect us. Let us now listen to Patricia's story. Patricia's prayer. Patricia lives in central Cameroon. She's a lot like other girls. She likes to jump rope and talk with her friends, but in some ways Patricia is different from other children. She has HIV and often feels sick. 2 years ago, Patricia's mother died of AIDS, and Patricia and her sister went to live with their grandmother. Her father couldn't pay the girls' tuition at the Seventh-day Adventist school they had been attending, so he sent them to the public school near their home. But the children at the public school shunned Patricia because of her illness. The girl begged her father to let her return to the Adventist school. The teachers and children at the Adventist school don't tease me, she said. They pray for me. And they help me if I don't feel well or need help. Please, please let me go to the Adventist school. Finally, Patricia's father allowed her to return to the Adventist school. I love my school, she says. When I'm feeling well, I'm just one of the children in my class. And when I'm not feeling well, the teachers and the children help me. Patricia's father can't always pay her tuition. So Patricia prays that God will make a way for her to remain in school. Patricia enjoys attending Sabbath school too. She likes the Bible stories the most. My favorite story is about Moses, she says. When he was born, he was hidden in a basket and found by the Pharaoh's daughter. God saved him from death because his mother prayed for him. God loved Moses very much, Patricia says with a smile. He gave Moses a special work to do. I know that God's loved me and he has something special for me to do too. God can use me to help people to come to Jesus. I don't know how he will do that, but I know he will. Patricia wants others to know even if they have problems in life, whether they are poor or sick or have no money, God is with them and will help them. Trust God and worship him, she says. Whatever you do, do it for Jesus. That way, others will know that Jesus lives in your heart. Patricia knows that God didn't make her sick, but he could use her sickness to help other people learn about his love. She learned that at the Little Adventist School in a village in Cameroon. We may not be dealing with a disease like Patricia or struggling to overcome the terrible act of bullying like Wilhelm, but whatever adversities, we are always in need of God's grace. Amen. Your worst days are never so bad that you're beyond the reach of God's grace. And your best days are never so good that you're beyond the need of God's grace.
Happy Sabbath, church. I am happy to be in God's presence this Sabbath day. I want to thank God, my parents, pastor, and the children's ministry department of our church for letting me preach today. Let us pray. Dear God, thank you for allowing me to preach today. Help me to preach your word properly and help us to absorb the information and learn more about your love. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. The topic of my sermon is love one another. God's love gives us joy. We are now called to give that gift to one. I am happy to be in the presence of God's love this Sabbath day. We are now called to give that gift to one another. Jesus told us to share love in John 13, verse 34 and 35. He says, "A new command I give you. Love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." This was right before Jesus was taken to be crucified, right before he would take the penalty of the wages of sin for us. He wanted his disciples to know and understand that by loving one another, they were demonstrating God's love and his grace in action. People would take notice of this as part of their identity as Christ followers. The love Jesus tells his disciples about is no ordinary love. It was unlike anything that the world around them had ever seen or heard of. The word Jesus uses is agapo. This is unconditional love, even for people who don't deserve it. It is practical love, which acts unselfishly. This is adoptive love, which accepts people as family. This is the love God has for us, and this is the love that Jesus asks us to share with one another. He asks us to love those who don't always deserve it. He asks us to act on our love unselfishly. He asks us to share his love unconditionally, just as he has loved us. There are several words for love that are listed in the Bible, which would have been known during the time of Jesus. The first kind of love is the Hebrew word ahab. This word was used to describe a close relationship, such as with a parent and child, husband and wife, or brother and sister. The second word Jesus was used to describe the kind of love you have between your friends. The third love which Jesus uses when he says love one another is agape. This kind of love is different from the others. Agape love, it describes as unconditional. It is not based on the person's goodness or how you feel about them. Instead, it is an unconditional love that comes directly from God. Each individual is different. We come from different families and cultures. We are different ages. We have different likes and dislikes. We may all be different, but we all need God's unconditional love. And we all need the gift of his grace. To exercise loving one another, we must be friendly, good, kind, sympathetic, patient, helpful, and loving. All the good qualities that we appreciate in other people, God has in abundance. He is a heavenly Father to us all. The Bible teaches God is love. 1 John chapter 4, verse 8. His loving kindness is excellent. Psalm chapter 36, verse 7. He is merciful and gracious. He is abundant in goodness and truth. Exodus chapter 34, verse 6. The Lord reveals his goodness by what he does. The Lord is good to all, and his tender mercies are over all his works. Psalm chapter 145, verse 9. Even as a kind father and a faithful mother watches and cares for their children, even more does the God of heaven loves and cares for us, his children. In conclusion, loving one another is what we call sacrificial love. It means putting others before yourself. It means doing to others as you would have them do to you. Matthew 7, verse 12. It means we should strive to be like Jesus. Remember now, we are created in his own image and likeness. So it is our responsibility and challenge to be like him. If we could only be like Jesus, I am sure it would be the greatest feeling in the world. So my challenge to everyone here today is let us all try to be like Jesus.
Amen.
He loves us so much that he didn't hesitate to die in our place so that we might live.
Amen.
1 John 3:16. For that is love. It is love when we deprive ourselves of something so that someone else can benefit, especially if that someone is weak, poor, or vulnerable.
Amen.
We are important to God, and God's love is more than an emotion. It's a lifestyle. God's love never changes. You shouldn't hesitate to show love. Love should be a habit. God's love has no division or limit. God loves men, women, black, white, and God's love is not racist. God's love is for everyone. God gives us a choice to do good or evil, even though God's love is for everyone. it has to be accepted. He did not send Jesus to tell us we're going to hell if we do not change, but he sent Jesus to save us from our sins and give us an opportunity to change.
Amen.
First, I want to give God thanks for this wonderful opportunity to speak to his people today. Thanks to the church's department and the church board. Special thanks to Pastor Baptiste for allowing us to use his pulpit. Nana, Sister Ann Lewis, how can I say thanks to you? Or how many thanks can I give to you? Words aren't enough. Today is my opportunity to say to you publicly, thank you for the 11 years and still counting of preparation, grooming, and training. Sometimes, to be truthful though, Nana, I didn't like it. But today, it paid off really well, in church and in school. Because I have been taught to put Jesus first. I have been an A student from 1st grade through 5th grade, with many high achievements. I will not wait another day to let you know you are my spiritual hero sent from God. Sometimes I even question myself, is she ever tired? Last but not least, thanks to my loving Sunrise Church family. The theme we are highlighting today is God's Amazing Grace, and my topic is entitled God's Great Big Family. Let us pray. Dear Jesus, thank you for today. Thank you for this privilege to be used by you. Even though I'm but a child, speak through me to your people in Jesus' name. Amen. To those of our visiting friends who may not know me, I am Christine Lewis. I am 11 years old, and I'm a 6th grader. Today is a very special day for me. Two of the many reasons are, it's my first time preaching, and today I've gotten the opportunity to tell the grown-ups what to do. God's gifts of love and grace set us free. Because of this, Jesus has told us to love one another. Let us turn our Bibles to 1 John 4, verse 7 and 8. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone that loveth is born of God and knoweth God. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. He shared that others would recognize them. He shared that others would recognize them as Christian by how they loved. Being a part of God's family, we are required to share and to love each other. The disciples in the early church followed in Jesus' footsteps, and they also followed his commandments. The apostles continued to teach and fellowship, and in breaking of bread and praying. Acts 2, verse 42 through 47. All came over every soul, and many wonders and signs were being done through the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything together. If we are to be a part of God's big family, don't you think the same rules should apply to us? Yes. They even sold their possessions and gave it to the less fortunate. Day by day, with one mind, not two, they were devoted to meeting in the temple and continue their sharing. We are encouraged to share and continue sharing if we are to be identified as part of God's family. We cannot be unkind. We have to share even if it's our last meal and it's not enough. To be added to this great family, we all have to do likewise as the apostles did. The early church ate together, built together, walked and talked together, and most importantly, they prayed together. They supported one another's needs, met for worship, and praised God together. Church family of Sunrise and visiting friends. We cannot be a part of that family if we are separated. People should see God's loving grace through our actions, and day by day, more people will be added, making the family even bigger. We don't have to worry about space. And for us children who like to fuss with our siblings about my room or whose bed, let us turn our Bibles to St. John 14, verse 2. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. The early church knew it and believed it. We can too. The choice is ours. Whether we are prepared or unprepared, he's coming. For children like myself and others who are not able to make our own choices, all we have to do is ask Jesus into our hearts. He's God and he will do the rest. Some may question it, but think about what is happening right now. Street shooting, nightclub shooting, church and school shooting, fearful children in schools, even to go outside to play. How could Jesus continue to let us live in this messed up world? Here's a promise. Jesus is preparing a place, not only a place, but many mansions for us. Amen. If God says it, I believe it. All we have to do is to make preparation. One may ask how. First, we need to love. And if we love, we just need to continue sharing our love to each other. Each one will teach one, and the love will continue to spread, and each one will lead one. God's kingdom will increase. Another may ask, when? My answer would be now. We are only sure of today. The best part of being in God's big family is the promise Jesus has given us of forever freedom. Not for me, Christine, alone, but for all of us. The gift of grace does not end at the cross. Jesus has promised to come again in St. John 14, verses 1 through 3. Let us all read together. Let not your heart be troubled. Ye believe in me, or be awful in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. Jesus said he's coming again. He cannot lie. All we have to do is give him our hearts. In closing, it's a promise we can all remember, and we can all be a part of. Jesus is preparing a place for us in heaven, and for sure he's going to come again, so that way we can be with him in that big family reunion. The children on the platform, along with those in the congregation, will meet at the altar, followed by their parents and guardians. The youth will follow. Next we will have the church family and visiting friends. Imagine it with me. All those who have accepted the gift of grace, all together. It's going to be huge. If you would like to accept Jesus' gift of grace, I invite you to pray with me. The parents. Dear Jesus, thank you for your gift of grace. Thank you that we are able to love one another. We all want to be in heaven with you. I pray you will bless each one here. We accept your gift of grace and give our lives to you. In Jesus' name, amen. Please remain. I will now take my stand at the altar while Elder Bailey will pray the prayer of commitment.
Let us pray. Father in heaven, we are so indeed grateful to you for your love and your mercy. Lord, we thank you for our children here at Sunrise. Amen. Lord, you have blessed us with so many children, and we're indeed grateful to you for your love and your amazing grace towards them. Lord, we pray now that you will pronounce a blessing upon them. Lord, bless the homes from which they come. We ask, Lord, that you will be with them in their going out and their coming in, that you will surround them with your grace and your mercy, that you will help them at school, at play, wherever they are, Lord, that you will protect them from all harm and danger. Help them in all their undertakings, Lord, to excel and to shine for you. Lord, and we as parents, guardians, help us to instill in them that love that you have for them, that you love them with an everlasting love, and you promise that you will never leave them or forsake them. So help them to realize that your goodness and your mercy is always close to them. Pray now, Lord, that you will put some blessing upon them. May they excel in all that they do. Give them the grace to carry on and to shine for you, so that wherever they go, others may see you in them and will come to glorify your name. Bless us to this end and help us, Lord, to be faithful to the end, is our prayer in Jesus' name.
The closing hymn is number 109, Marvelous Grace.
Marvelous grace of our loving Lord, grace that exceeds our sin and our guilt. Yonder on Calvary's mount upward, there where the blood of the Lamb was spilled. Grace, grace, God's grace, grace that will pardon and cleanse within. Marvelous grace, infinite grace, grace that is greater than all our sin. Sin and despair like the sea waves cold threaten the soul with infinite loss. Grace that is greater, yes, grace untold, points to the refuge, the mighty cross. Marvelous grace, infinite grace, grace that will pardon and cleanse within. Marvelous grace, infinite grace, grace that is greater than all our sin. Marvelous, infinite, matchless grace, freely bestowed on all who believe. You that are longing to see His face, will you this moment His grace receive? Marvelous grace, infinite grace, grace that will pardon and cleanse within. Marvelous grace, infinite grace, grace that is greater than all our sin.
May the grace of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, rest, remain, and abide with us all, now and forevermore. Amen.
I'm going to invite you to remain standing right where you are. We have a visitor named Sister Valda who has just to leave the compound for Florida Medical Center. She's visiting with us and she has just left for Florida Medical Center. I'm going to ask you that you bow our heads, that we bow our heads as we breathe a prayer on her behalf. Eternal God and our Heavenly Father, hallowed be your high and holy name. Lord, we have just listened to these messages and sing this song about your amazing grace. There is nothing or nobody who can stand in the place of you because you are God. Today we are grateful unto you for the presence of Sister Valda with us as she came visiting. Whatever the situation is, we do not know right now, but you fully know, Lord. And as she is on her way to the Florida Medical Center, we are asking you that you will dispatch angels that excel in strength and help, Lord, that they will get there before her so that when she reaches, there will be somebody there to look after her. We pray that you will inspire those who meet her and those who touch her and help her that the touch will not necessarily just be from them, but it will be your spirit going through them to work on her so that her recovery will be fast and good. We are asking you, Lord, to give her the trust and the confidence to know that you are able. We pray that you will be with us who are now praying and help us to have faith in you that you are able to deliver. So we pray now that you will be with her, that you will direct everything that will happen, and help that your great name will be glorified through this, and through it all, she herself will learn to trust in Jesus. In Jesus' name we pray.
Please be seated.